Metal Jesus, back again, and it's Halloween weekend. And I was trying to think what game would be perfect to review on Halloween. Well, it's got to be the classic adventure game from Sierra, and that is called Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within. Now, a lot of people haven't played this game if you were the console gamer in the 90s. This came out only on the PC and Mac. But this game's kind of special because it's a full motion video game. But hold on a second, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because this game is actually considered to be the best full motion video game ever made, even today. So, what makes this game so special? Why is it so great? Let's take a look. Gabriel Knight 2, The Beast Within was created by Jane Jensen and published by Sierra Online in 1995 for DOS, Windows 3.1, and also Mac. Jane Jensen made the original Gabriel Knight 1. And for those who don't know, Gabriel Knight 1 was a traditional animated graphic adventure game from Sierra. But it was really unique because it embraced the CD format in a way that hadn't been done before. They actually got Hollywood voice actors to do all the parts. And so there was Tim Curry, Michael Dorn. Some of you may know him as Worf from Star Trek Next Generation. Of course, Mark Hamill and a bunch of other people. But with Gabriel Knight 2, they decided to push the technology even further towards Hollywood and make the game completely full motion video. And then they would mix in Hollywood production values, but still keep it within the adventure genre. Now, all this talk about full motion video is pretty interesting, especially when you consider 1995. What came before then was games that were either on floppy disk or on cartridge, and there just wasn't the storage space like there was on a CD-ROM, and so the games are starting to get much more complex anyways. You know, you would have games with really complex stories, and you'd have real writers, and then you would have voice actors come in. And so the natural progression at the time was, well, geez, we're moving to the Hollywood format anyways. Why not go full motion video? The thing is that the CD-ROM format wasn't exactly enough space. And so this game actually ships on 6 discs. It's crazy. And this is not the first Sierra game to do that, actually. They shipped, I believe, 7 discs with Phantasmagoria. And part of that is because video compression technology wasn't quite up to snuff. And also too, they just didn't have DVD yet, which has tons more space. So a little history on Gabriel Knight. Gabriel owns a bookstore, and he's also a mystery writer in New Orleans. But at the end of the first game, he became a Schattenjäger, or that's essentially a shadow hunter, and is now living in a castle that he inherited in a small German village. And Gabriel's just a hilarious character. He's really well written, and there's a reason why I think this game has stood the test of time, and one of them is the characters in it. Gabriel is flippant, he's brash, he's kind of aloof, but he's ultimately the smartest person in the room, and he's very keen to detect small details within a scene. And then you have Grace, his assistant, and she is a total history buff, and she acts as almost that she has something to prove. She's very smart, but I also like her character too because she softens up, especially later on in the game when she talks to these whacked out psychics and she starts to learn that Gabriel might be in danger.
Well, Gabriel and I are involved with a case right now.
It will be a hard time. You must let your love give you power. Use the positive energy of your union or you may not succeed.
I think you have the wrong idea. Gabriel and I just work together.
Yes, dear.
Now, the plot of Gabriel Knight deals with Gabriel sitting in Germany in his newly acquired castle trying to write a book, and along comes a knock on the door, and because he is known as the Schattenjäger, there's been a murder in town of a small girl, and the locals come and hope to get him to help out with the mystery because it's not... At least in their eyes, it doesn't appear to be a typical murder. As a matter of fact, they think it might be a werewolf.
Are you the Schattenjäger now, or are you not?
When Gabriel starts looking into the murder of the young girl, he notices that there is a very large paw print in the ground. And it appears to be a wolf, but of course it's too large for a wolf. And so they don't say that it's a werewolf, But he starts to notice that there's something kind of weird and wacky going on here. He also learns that a couple wolves have escaped the local zoo in Munich, and that takes his story into the big city where he starts meeting a lot of really interesting and weird characters.
Petersburg.
You are a member of the Ritter family? Of Rittersberg, Bavaria?
Yes. What used to be Bavaria anyway?
Well, it will always be Bavaria to us.
So when Gabriel gets to Munich, he very quickly meets a really interesting character called von Glauer. And the actor that plays this character, I just have to point out, he is absolutely excellent. He's so captivating in this role and completely natural. It's just a pleasure to watch this guy in this game. It's really fun. Now, that character runs a club. It's actually a hunting club, and it's sort of like a gentleman's club devoted to basically all the pleasures that the world has to offer. And so these guys they're rich, but they sort of live above the law. They certainly see themselves above the law. And right off the bat, you as a gamer, you suspect that these guys have something to do with it, but you're not exactly sure what. And each one of the characters is really interesting in their backstory, and there's a lot of red herrings. It's actually a lot of fun to play this part of the game.
Don't worry about Von Zell. He's a bastard to everyone these days.
PMS?
I don't know what his problem is.
While Gabriel is in Munich trying to figure out what's going on with these escaped wolves and what does this have to do with this club, the game will switch over and you'll play Grace for a little bit. And Grace is kind of going at the game from a different angle. And this is where the game gets really interesting because she focuses on and sort of stumbles upon the historical aspects of Germany and some of its old kings like Ludwig, and how that might fit into the lore of werewolves. And at first you're kind of like, what is this game doing? Why is it going this direction? But it adds another depth to it because the level of detail in this is just incredible. And what I mean by that is in Gabriel Knight 2, they don't use computers to do CGI backgrounds to put their actors in front of. Instead, what the developers smartly did is they actually went to Germany and took thousands and thousands of real photographs of these locations. And so that when the characters are standing there and you're controlling them, it looks real. I mean, these are real places. But the game goes even further than that and adds in real history. So you get to learn about Ludwig II and why he was the Mad King. And the game takes some historical aspects of that, but also mixes in some fiction. It kind of reminds me of maybe the Anne Rice novels and that sort of vibe. That's kind of what they were going for here. And also you get to learn about Wagner and some of his operas and why that ties into the whole story. Now, if you're already a fan of the old classic Sierra adventure games, or even the LucasArts ones, this game's going to feel right at home with you. You basically control the game with the mouse, and then you click on various elements within the background. And instead of getting an animated character in this game, because it's full motion video, everything is a movie. And that's either good or bad. But from that, you will learn either a clue, maybe you'll engage in some dialogue, or you'll add something to your inventory that you can either examine or manipulate in some way to advance the plot. The only thing I would say is that in this game, it can be hard to tell what you need to click on. Now, an example of this would be in Chapter 4. You play Chapter 4 as Grace, and in that chapter, a lot of things are starting to come together. She is really focusing on trying to figure out the history of Ludwig and also Wagner, and also this mysterious character called the Black Wolf. And she's going back and forth between different locations. A lot of them are museums. And she needs to read plaques. She has to examine papers. She needs to talk to people. You need to basically click on every single thing that you can possibly think of in order to advance that chapter. But I'll tell you what, I was stuck for hours. As a matter of fact, I had to use 2 walkthroughs, and that didn't even do it because I was missing some little pixel, some little item, way off in the corner. And I actually had to watch a video playthrough of that just to get through it. Now, that's an extreme example, but it sort of shows one of the things I didn't like about this game is that sometimes, man, you just cannot tell what in the background you're supposed to be clicking on.
Have you ever heard about the letter that Ludwig wrote to the Munich conductor in 1882 telling him to prepare for a new Wagner opera?
You're full of surprises for an American.
What do you know about it?
All right, so all these years later, what did I really think about Gabriel Knight 2? Well, I got to tell you, man, this was a surprisingly engrossing story. I could not wait to come downstairs and play this game to figure out what was going on. And I'll tell you what, there were excellent performances by these actors. Specifically, there is these born-again demonologists that were just really fun to watch. There's a creepy bartender. You have this secretary that's kind of annoying, and there's also this guy who's just like a helpful family attorney, and they're all just fantastic. I would say this is definitely not your typical full motion video game. This really actually could have been a decent movie. Now, some of the things I wasn't crazy about were, well, some of the puzzles were a bit obtuse and kind of hard to figure out. And yes, I'm looking at you, clock puzzle. That was ridiculous. That was way too hard. You know, and also having to just click on every little, inch of the screen to try to figure out what you've missed was really annoying. And I'm glad games today don't do this. But back in 1995, yeah. Also, not to give a spoiler, but the ending of this game is a little weak, especially for a game that is so epic. I just felt like the ending was a little bit of a letdown, but that should not stop you from playing it. Also, the pacing can be a little odd, especially when every action ends in a pause. So that's my review of Gabriel Knight 2. I'm actually showing a really old copy of Interaction Magazine here where they are featuring the game. I thought that might be kind of fun for fans. But you may have noticed I didn't show and talk a lot about the plot, and that's because this game is still for sale today. And so if you have any interest in old classic games, you should definitely check out this because they still sell it at GOG.com. I was totally surprised to see it there, and only for $6. And they've modernized the game to run on current systems. So if you have a new computer, definitely check this out. It's really fun. And like I said, if you're a fan of horror films, especially ones that are done really well, this is a no-brainer. So I want to thank you for watching my channel and thanks for subscribing. Take care.